Hello, you're watching World Talks on TVP World. My name is Sascha Fahrbach. The recent release of files related to disgraced financier and sex offender Jeffrey Epstein has renewed international legal scrutiny into the mechanisms of sexual exploitation and human trafficking. Now, beyond individual criminal responsibility, the documents have prompted authorities in several countries, including Lithuania, to reassess past associations and financial ties. We examine these developments now with Małgorzata Andrzejczak-Świątek, Institute of Legal Sciences, Police Academy in Szczytno. Thanks so much for joining us here. Welcome.
Good morning.
So let's start with the latest here, Małgorzata. We have these new openings, these probes by the Lithuanian authorities, also Poland looking into this as well. Where do you think this is going to lead? What's the evidence and the implications of all this?
We have to state that Epstein case reveals the mechanism of human trafficking and exploitation in a white glove fashion, without the typical stereotypes of the mafia or smuggling. Above all, perpetrators always operate in an organized manner, more or less, creating a network of connections. Within this network, there are supporters, but also silent beneficiaries, and we can see it in Epstein case. And the recruitment mechanism is often inconspicuous. It occurs through friends, for example, refer a friend, promises of easy money, massage, modeling also. So initial contact is deliberately normalized, and over time boundaries are pushed. So we can see that perpetrators often use psychological and structural control. They exploit financial dependency, shame, and normalization, gradation of abuse. So the victim doesn't know when the line has been crossed. Perpetrators also use isolation, also use compromising situations like movies, like photos. So this is the broad context of mechanism. It's very difficult to investigate, especially when we don't have political will and we don't have effectiveness activity of law enforcement.
Interesting points. You also said when the line has been crossed. I want to get to that in a moment about recruitment, but let's talk about this political will. We have this now very public. We have this not just in the United States, but it's now also very much a political thing with Epstein crossing various boundaries and associations. We're just maybe at the tip of the iceberg here. You said there's political will missing in all this, and the central point here about also human trafficking. Is this some kind of turning point right now? Is this going to raise the awareness of this bigger issue now more than in the past, or where do you see this going?
I have to say that human trafficking isn't a marginal phenomenon, but we also can't conclude that everyone in power is involved, of course. It's a structural phenomenon, but not unique either. So it's obvious that human trafficking is one of the most profitable crimes in the world, alongside drugs and weapons, and it operates where there are inequalities of power, money, and impunity. So it permeates various levels of society, including the elites, where the money, contacts, and protection are available. So we have to say that government doesn't have to be involved. It simply doesn't react. The most common mechanism isn't that the state organizes human trafficking, but that institutions turn a blind eye. Investigations are delayed or suppressed, and victims are ignored. This is crucial. Systemic indifference act and complicity, even without formal consent, because human trafficking follows demand, not margins, and elites create closed circles. Unfortunately, the Epstein case is another example demonstrating that a system designed to protect the weakest very often in practice protects the strongest. So this is not question about the policy, this is the question about mechanism and about the elites, also business elites, also high level of influences into the political level.
There's a lot to dig into. I want to touch on what you said about this system indifference. Then look at it then at this point, what do you suggest? What can then be those early warning signs if we're looking at people who are potentially victims of being trafficked? What are those early warning signs? I mean, we've heard things like certain job ads, and then how do we prevent those? Or is it this coming from a community level? This is some sort of other, let's say, combined efforts? What are those, let's say, means to rectify that?
As I said before, perpetrators often use psychological and structural control. They exploit financial dependency. They use shame and normalization and gradation of abuse. So, as I said, the victim very often doesn't know when the line has been crossed. So the warning signs are different from the perspective of law enforcement, are a little bit different from the perspective of society. So Epstein cases shows us the warning signs which were really visible. First of all, numerous reports from girls and women. A lot of reports were ignored. Secondly, repetitive recruitment pattern is also the warning sign, very, very important. Underage individuals regularly visiting the residence of an adult male. It was obvious and nobody reacted. And of course, huge power and age disparities. This is also very often visible warning sign. From the side of social perspective is a little bit different. I would say that this is some kind of subjective perspective, because such warning signs and red flags should be included. For example, mysterious wealth and lifestyle. Some sudden disappearances, strange behavior, I mean emotional behavior, but also the change in a lifestyle, and girls with similar stories. The last one is very important because we can see it in every human being trafficking case regarding sexual exploitation of women and children, that those stories of them, reported stories, are very similar to each other, and very often they are ignored for many, many years.
Also, I want to ask you about, if we're looking at some UN data, the UN estimates about 38% of traffic victims are children. We have another figure from the ILO, 160 million in child labor, that's worldwide. Looking also how we combat that, I want to look and get your assessment. I mean, there was a large operation, I think it was Interpol, in the summer of 2025 called Global Chain, 15,000 officers. There were about 100, I believe, over 150 arrests, over 1,000 victims across different countries, then eventually safeguarded. So if we're looking, though, back at this, how important that transnational cooperation is to shut these kind of things down, are there, let's say, enough legal means? Is there something missing in your mind? And will we see more of these kind of operations in the future?
It's some kind of paradox, because international law has a comprehensive mechanism for preventing and combating human trafficking. These treaties, especially treaties, UN treaties, but also some regional treaties, conventions, they provide states with effective measures to protect victims and provide them with tools for international cooperation. This will likely also assist the Polish prosecutor's office in conducting proceeding. However, the main problem in the continuing low awareness of the phenomenon of human trafficking, it's not question about effectiveness of law, it's the question about the level of our awareness, because victims themselves are often unaware that they are victims. Human trafficking can take the form of various crimes and can truly affect anyone. This is very important. UN, the newest reports estimate that up to 7 million people may be victim of human trafficking worldwide every day. So debunking myths and taboos and building awareness are crucial in combating sexual exploitation as a form of human trafficking, because then victims emerge from the shadows. They can stop fear. They can stop feel shame. Impunity and consent are the enemies of effectiveness. So we can say that we certainly need more training, social campaigns, and raising awareness among young people, but not only, also for law enforcement. In times of some kind of, I call it, inversion of contents, this is the challenge, how to learn and how to build awareness about human being trafficking. Of course, in criminology, we have a certain outline, a psychological portrait of a victim of human trafficking. But in practice, we can see that the practice show that victims can come from different backgrounds, have different experiences, education, age, and a lack of so-called algorithm does not protect anyone from this crime. And so the same with perpetrators.
Right, there are many layers. I'm sorry to interrupt you there. Unfortunately, we do have limited time, and there's so many layers to this. But look, I want to really thank you for all your insights today and expertise. That was our guest here today, Małgorzata Andrzejczak-Świątek. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching, but stay tuned right here on TVP World for more news and commentary. Goodbye.